Hey, welcome to Hey, welcome to episode 164 of the Carrier's Edge podcast. I am your host, Jane Jazraoui, co-founder of Carrier's Edge and Best Fleets to Drive For, and with me, who can probably speak more eloquently,
Mark Morrell, other co-founder of Carrier's Edge, and that opening illustrates very perfectly where we are at right now.
Yes, operating on 3 brain cells.
And one of those was not used up to store the episode number. It is actually episode 114, not 164.
Oh.
You said 164.
Yes, I know. And I thought I was being really good about remembering the number. But I've had to, in my defense, I've had to schedule a lot of things today.
Yes.
And scheduling is not my forte.
Numbers and scheduling.
Numbers and dates and times and time zones and...
That is not your forte.
No.
Organizing words and images and files are absolutely your forte. But when it comes to numbers, no.
And measurements. We had some measurement in there.
Yes.
And it's not like I can't do it. I am perfectly capable of doing it. But I also had 4 meetings and back and forth on like trying to schedule. It's not even scheduling. I can schedule a meeting without a problem. But when I'm scheduling 2 different parties through email while I'm at a meeting who are on different time zones and I have to go back and forth because the times keep changing, then my brain starts to leak out my ears.
Yes.
And that's kind of where we're at. The leakage has occurred.
Well, the leakage has occurred, absolutely. And of course, we are going to talk about the main reason for that brain leakage.
That sounds gross. Sorry about that. That little picture in your brain. So the main reason for the leakage, yes, for the lack of brain cells, even though it's been a while, like it's March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's for everybody. But we had the Best Fleets Education and Awards Conference 2025.
Yes.
Not even 2 weeks ago, and we're still not recovered.
Well, that whole week was gone because after the thing is done, we have wrap up and other housekeeping things that we have to do. And then we have travel. And then after travel, we only got here, even though the conference ended at like 2 p.m. on Tuesday, we didn't get back until mid-afternoon on Thursday. And we were just fried. We were, because we totally forgot. Well, we had to do a little bit of planes, trains, and automobiles. We had to go to a third location. Well, we had to fly back to Toronto. Then we had to drive to Waterloo, get stuff, get back in, go back to the airport, and haul around these suitcases that were so friggin' heavy. Yeah, we had a bunch of stuff that we had to drop at our storage unit. And did not realize until the very last leg of the journey that, there's carts. Remember carts? Yes. It was only finally when we were at our final destination waiting for our luggage that I saw a luggage cart and went, oh, yeah, we should use one of those. And we were hauling around a lot of stuff. Yeah. Why didn't we think of that? I don't know. And you know what? We were with all of those other people. Yeah. Like, we weren't just by ourselves. It wasn't just our brain fart. It was also like 5 other people. So we'll blame the staff. Who, watching us drag all these things around and thinking, oh, Jane's limping. Maybe she shouldn't be hauling this thing around. Yep. But one, there weren't any carts that I could see. Oh, I think we walked right by them and didn't even notice them because they're so ubiquitous at an airport. You don't even notice them. We don't use them most of the time. Well, they used to not be ubiquitous. Yeah, they used to be Pearson. At Pearson, they used to, if you got a cart, you were super lucky. Mm-hmm. Now they seem to be a little bit more abundant, but it was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it because my back is killing me. Yeah, it is killing me. It was quite a funny sight. The morning of our main day of activities before you went on for your keynote, you're doing the physical therapy on the floor of our staff room. Thank you, Tommy. Yes. And the show must go on, right? Yep. And I must be upright. Yeah, I can't wear heels, so I did not wear heels, but I did manage to be upright, and I didn't limp that much. No, it was good. So, and there was nobody in the audience that would have thought you had a limp. You weren't limping on stage. I do definitely have a limp right. Well, it's actually not too bad now. Yeah.
So I'm going to the chiropractor tomorrow.
So we had a whole week of basically written off time from the conference and coming back. And then last week was all of the things that we put off till after the conference that were waiting for us. And it was trying to dig through all of those and get sorted out.
Yes. So we dug through stuff, and this week is kind of business as usual, but it feels like we need a vacation, basically. Yes. We need a break. We need a proper break. A weekend is not a proper break. We need to have time to just go and do something completely different for at least a couple of days to get our brains back into, to like clean up all the mess from the leakage, the brain leakage.
Pack that back inside the head.
Our complaints notwithstanding, it was a really good time. It went really well. I was really happy with it. It seems like the fleets were really happy with it.
Yeah. I would absolutely agree with that because I think it went off pretty smoothly. The guest speakers that we had all did a really nice job, all had lots of great information to share. The press that was there got lots of stories, and the pictures looked good. The fleets that were there seemed to have a good time. I actually got to go to the reception this time and have some food on the Monday night. It wasn't just rushing in as they were taking it all away, so that was good. I would call it a success on most fronts.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I think, there seemed to be, we had a lot of improvements. I think we learned a lot from last year, and we implemented some things that were better about the, how the fleets were presented on stage. I had the idea of, going through the historical data on every fleet that was in the top 20 in Hall of Fame about how long they've been in the program. When did they actually get on the top 20? Because sometimes they started or they were nominated in a year. And, I think there was one that was like 7 or 8 years later finally got on the list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it kind of shows you how hard fleets work to actually do it. Sometimes you can get on the list and then you're the top of the heap in a couple of years, but that's not typical. So I enjoyed doing that, and I was wondering about how it was going to go, but I think it went really well.
No, it went well. Yeah, and it looked good having their logos up there with their key dates in history as they came out on stage. That was really nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I didn't get to hear the speakers, though. That's the problem with running the thing, is that you don't get to hear what people are saying. So I'm glad that the press has actually run stories about it, so then I can kind of, even though I was there but not there, I can find out about it. So there's a couple of stories, and I think Truck News has covered it.
Truck News has done a bunch of stories, so shout out to Christina for that. Yes. I think she's got 5 stories out now. So she definitely earned her keep at that event. She did a lot of stories, so that was good to see. Yes, the speakers were good. Stephen Bojan from Sentry did a really nice job talking about an insurance perspective on workplace culture and the things that insurers can learn within an hour of looking at a company, or how to tell how good a company is within an hour or within a few minutes, like very quick things that they notice. So he did a really nice job of that, and it really overlapped well with the things that we're talking about in terms of providing a good workplace culture and the benefits of doing that beyond just improving driver retention.
There was a question, and we talked about it afterwards, but there was a question that I had on my panel, because I did a panel with Halver Lines and Transland. Halver Lines is a Hall of Fame best fleet, and Transland has been, I believe, they're a 4-year. So next year will be their 5 if they make it. And one of the questions from the audience was about, how does safety?
Oh, yeah.
How does safety sort of affect, whether you're on, are you a safer fleet because you're a best fleet? And you had a really interesting response. Their response was, no, not really. There's no correlation. It's really about making your drivers happier. But what I said was that you have to have your numbers have to be good to get on the top 20. It's not a safety contest, but you have to have some decent numbers, because the driver experience in a collision or when there's a problem are going to affect how satisfied you are with the company.
Yes.
So that was the point that I made, but you had some other thoughts on that.
I had a very strong reaction to that. And if I had been in the room when that question was asked and when they gave that answer, I would have walked down and taken a microphone and corrected them, because yes, their safety programs absolutely tie into this. You can't have a good workplace culture and bad safety, or vice versa. Well, you can have good safety and a terrible culture, and eventually, if you're doing the wrong things to improve safety,
it will affect your culture.
It will absolutely affect your culture. So good workplace culture and safety go together when you factor in retention as well, because there's things that you can do to improve safety without making a good workplace culture, and they're unpleasant, like making it really unpleasant anytime somebody gets a violation, but that's going to spike turnover. People will not stick around for that. And if you are doing it the other way, if you're doing it the right way, and when people have violations, you coach them and you get better and you're more collaborative and drivers buy into what you're trying to do, they feel like part of a team, all of that ends up having a positive effect on both safety and on turnover. So I think for both of the people that were on that panel, their workplace culture and their safety programs are very interconnected. They all work together. So the things that Halver Lyons has done to improve its safety and improve its culture end up being essentially the same things. And it's the same for Transland.
I think that that's a panel for next year.
Yeah, safety and workplace culture, how they fit together.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to write a blog story about it.
Well, I think we could absolutely do that. People are interested in safety and workplace culture and how they fit together, because it's one of those things where there's always there's always like some sort of talk about safety culture. Mm-hmm. And is safety culture about having a good place to work, or is it about having a safe place to work? Like where's the focus? It's mm-hmm. like, are you focusing when people talk about good culture? Who are they talking about it for? And when we talk about it, we're generally kind of thinking about kind of the entire thing. It's not just for millennials, and it's not just for safety, and it's not just for attracting women, and it's like everything has to fit together. And at some point you have to stop thinking about target groups and think about how, the general direction that you're going, that's going to bring everybody with it in terms of safety, in terms of feeling like you are part of a team, in terms of feeling like the company has your back.
Yeah, it's interesting because the industry tends to want to approach these things as if they're silos. Like I'm focused on safety. So is safety going to be better? I want to think about the things that will improve safety. But you can't think of these things as individual silos. It isn't I fix safety or I fix workplace culture. They're all the same. I fix safety or I fix turnover. They're all the same. All the same things work. And like you say, it's got to be for all the groups. And you have to approach all of the groups in order to get a real success with it.
Yeah, you need buy-in from everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what culture is about, is having agreement from everyone involved, from the executive to ops, to safety, to recruiting, to, HR, to drivers. Like everybody has to have some input into how you move forward. And from their particular lens, what the executive's job is to figure out how to make sure that you're addressing as much of the needs of everybody as you possibly can without without kind of going on a lopsided, you don't want to go too far into operations, or you don't want to make sure that it's about getting everything there as fast as possible, because then you have safety issues. Mm-hmm. If you are too focused on just making sure that you don't have any incidents or collisions or anything like that, then you may actually, your customer service may... Well,
you have to balance all of those things.
Yeah, I think that's what
we're saying. Yes, you have to focus on safety, but a focus on safety that is considering all of these other elements ends up creating more operational efficiency, so your customer service ends up better. And then drivers are happier, they stick around, they give better feedback on how to improve things. That, in turn, improves safety, and it ends up being the flywheel. that everybody is looking for.
I think the important part is to figure out what is the basic need that has to be met.
Yeah.
And then try and figure out how everybody else can fit into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to make sure that you are not, people are not getting injured. Okay, so you want to have 0 accidents. Okay, what does that mean for what about, this weekend when there were tornadoes everywhere? How are you going to keep people safe there?
Yep.
And then we have a question about that. What about natural disasters? And people go, oh, there aren't any, except, the
Except
tornadoes across the entire Midwest.
Yeah.
So if you don't think about it, if you don't consider it as part of your safety or your operations, if you have a blind spot where you think nothing's going to happen, but then you have something happen, you need the input from a number of different parties to make sure that you are actually addressing the problem correctly. If you think about it only in terms of operations, then your customers might be fine, but your drivers won't. If you think about it only from a safety point of view, your drivers might be fine, but your customers won't. Yeah. So it's a give and take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that will be a really good panel to have for next year, and we can talk about that. I'm already starting to get some ideas of who would be good to be part of that. But yes, other things that were real high points of the event are other guest speaker, Kevin, who was talking about the legal side of things and what's kind of happening in transportation litigation. Those are always fun sessions. And he also talked about the overlap with workplace culture and how that can be helpful in court and things that people should be doing to kind of prep for it, for the inevitability of a court case. So that was a really good session. So that one, well, I think we probably will do some write-ups on some of those, but we've got our own sessions that we're going to be turning into blogs. So all of the stuff that you went through, your keynote had a mountain of information in it. I think we may end up getting a couple of months worth of blog stories about what fleets are doing well, where they've got opportunities, what drivers are thinking, what drivers like and don't like. You covered a lot of ground on that.
I did. There was a lot of data, and I think I've talked in previous podcasts about all the data that I've been sifting through.
But your soundbite this year, you had a couple of them. One of them was the great disconnection.
Yes, the great. What did we call it? The
great resignation has turned into the great disconnection.
Yes,
so that is what is happening now. Everybody was talking about the great resignation a couple of years ago, and all of these people that were supposed to be going back into the office that were just quitting their jobs, and a couple of years later, it's sort of playing out in trucking where drivers are very much feeling disconnected from their companies now.
Absolutely. And just to note that the great resignation didn't really happen in trucking.
No. Well, it did during the boom time of 2021.
But it wasn't really. That was just more regular turnover when people were thinking, oh, I can be an owner-operator. I'll go and get more money here. There was a lot of money happening because there was a lot of freight. So people were job hopping because that is traditional. It wasn't like the Great Resignation where everybody quit their job, like when it was really bizarre and it was unusual. It wasn't unusual. What was happening in trucking wasn't unusual. But what I saw and what I've seen like throughout the years is that fleets have been making a real concerted effort to bring drivers closer. When you have a geographically dispersed workforce, which that's what drivers are, they're away from the office. You can't hold them close.
The original remote workforce, right?
Yeah. And it's difficult when you're in an office, you can maintain a connection with someone.
Yep. Because
you can see them every day. And when people are far away from you, it's much harder because they have other things that are taking away their attention. And other people may say, oh, but this is better here. And there's the chance that people may lose the connection with you when they're far away and you don't know what they're doing. You don't know who they're talking to or anything like that. So what fleet's been doing over the last few years is they've been successful at, especially through COVID, is keeping drivers closer. I think retention rates have improved over the years, and maybe not in all fleets, but certainly in the best fleets. Like people have been seeing routinely that drivers are staying longer. They have more word of mouth instead of having to, spend money on recruiting. They can use a recruiting bonus, and sometimes they don't even have to do that. They just have a waiting list. But now that connection that they had built up is starting to fray.
Yeah.
Because of the economic difficulties over the past couple of years. And drivers are like everybody, because we're seeing it too. Everybody is looking at inflation as everything costs more to live. It costs more to buy a house. It costs more to do everything. And now, because their income isn't improving at the same rate as inflation, they're starting to get annoyed. Mm-hmm. And there's this, for a while, they were okay with it. It was like, okay, well, eventually this is going to stop, and eventually it's going to become affordable again, and the company's going to start making money again, and we'll just get sorted out. But that getting sorted out isn't happening.
Yeah, or not happening quickly enough.
No.
It keeps getting kind of punted down the road a bit.
And I think drivers are starting to get fed up, because it's not only that their pay isn't increasing, their equipment isn't getting upgraded. Everything else about their job is starting to, it's like when you buy a house and you don't paint it for 5 or 10 years, and, that new house that looked so good when you first bought it is starting to have chipped paint, and things are starting to go wrong. And if you don't fix them, it's going to start to look junky.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And we saw that with the driver comments about equipment. And, definitely getting worse. And at the same time, you talked about drivers kind of feeling disconnected in terms of technology, the new technology that's getting put in the truck. And they're not so much against it, but they don't feel that they have very much of a say in it, that they're really being consulted.
Well, it wasn't just that. It's about not being consulted, which we've talked about before, is that when you put in a new system, you really have to get the buy-in from the people you're putting the system in for. If they don't like it or don't know how to use it, it's not going to succeed. But what I saw from the comments and from the response of the driver survey, it's about ongoing maintenance. Yeah. But not ongoing maintenance of the vehicle. It's ongoing maintenance of the technical equipment that you put in your truck.
That's really interesting, because a lot of this is hardware powered by software, and the software is where the companies put a lot of their effort.
Yes.
And hardware is difficult. Hardware, I remember my earlier jobs in tech, people said, whatever you do, stay out of hardware. Hardware is the hardest thing to do because it's so breakable, and you don't know how people are going to use it in the field. It can be a real pain. And I think people that produce these technology add-ons to the truck, tablets and cameras and all of these different devices, are learning that trucking is a challenging industry to support. Yes, the kind of sales pitch pieces work really nicely, and when it's working smoothly, it can be a really big benefit. But what happens when it breaks, and what happens when the driver drops it in the mud, and or something happens and it's too hot in the cab, and it starts to malfunction, or something goes wrong, or it doesn't have a great connection. Like, there's all of these things that can cause problems for that, and that's where the frustration for the driver comes up.
I remember, and this is an old story, you've heard this before, about Maury saying, put your modem in the freezer.
Yep.
And this was a modems in the freezer is a story from when I was first employed in my first high-tech job, and I sat, there was a wall separating me from the main tech support guy behind me. And the product that we had was a conferencing thing. It was email, and you could send messages, but you could also, it was basically a communications thing, and you did it over a modem. So everybody had to connect via modem to a bulletin board or to a main number. And on the server side, you had to have all these modems so everybody could call. So you'd have 6 modems. And if everybody was using those 6 modems, you could have 6 people online at the same time. I don't know how it worked, but it was something like that. But on the server, those modems would get really hot, especially if the server was popular and you had a whole bunch of people calling in at once. And I remember hearing Maury say, put it in the freezer. And I was like, put it in the freezer? What is he talking about? And it was a modem overheated, so put it in the freezer.
It stopped working for no good reason.
Yeah, overheats.
But it just got too warm. Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently these particular modems did overheat on a regular basis. So it was okay to freeze, stick them in there. They cooled down and then Bob's your uncle. You can keep going on. But you can't do that sort of thing when people are in a moving vehicle that they don't stop for hours and hours and hours. Like, how do you keep that going?
It also kind of put the onus on that user to do a little bit of maintenance on their own, fix the problem on their own. And in that particular case, that worked fine because people were kind of early adopters to connectivity and they were willing to do some of that work on their own. But truck drivers don't want to deal with that crap. They just want something that works.
Well, they're okay with doing it on an engine, like you're replacing wipers or something like
some of
that.
They will do.
Or if they're mechanically minded and their engines aren't super computerized, they can do some of that. I don't know, maybe fixing a tire, or probably not even that anymore.
Well, replacing a headlight.
Yeah, that's a better example. But, I mean, what do you do when the thing that you were supposed to be recording your logs on breaks down?
Yeah, or breaks down regularly and repeatedly. That's where the frustration comes up.
Yeah, and you report it and nobody does anything because there isn't anybody to do anything.
Yeah, the shop is trying to figure out from the manufacturer what to do about it. So that's an interesting point. Yeah, a lot of these things are designed and built in a perfect situation, sort of a perfect environment, and then you put it in the mountains, or you put it on the road in bad conditions or bad quality roads getting bounced around, and see what happens. And sometimes it doesn't work that well.
Well, vibration is nasty.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Yeah.
Vibration can really do some damage. And obviously, if you're making something for a truck, you're going to consider that. But, I think there are things that work better than others. And that ongoing maintenance, I'd like to add a question about that in, what do you do? Like software updates, even software updates, because a lot of fleets are ransomware because, now it's become a verb, are ransomware because people don't do security updates on their back office system. So why would they do an update on
the in-cab stuff?
On the in-cab software.
Interesting. Good points. But yes, these are all the things that came up that you were talking about in your keynote, and lots of great data there.
Yes, and people, I will say that I think as a whole, drivers are less satisfied with their jobs than they were 2 years ago.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's not getting better. I think that it's kind of limping along right now. I don't think there's going to be a mass exodus, but drivers are unhappy, and it's going to be harder to attract people into the industry if it doesn't improve. I don't know if improving is in the cards in the next year.
It's going to be tricky. Yeah, going to be very interesting to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was a very good session. A lot of good information there. One of the things that I look for every time we do our conference and every time we do a breakout session or any education session that we do, I want to see people writing notes, and I want to have a sense when they're leaving that they have multiple pages of notes. And I saw that this time. I was very happy to see that the portfolios that we gave out were getting used, and people had multiple pages of notes. People were telling me that they had 6 and 7 pages of notes out of the sessions to work with, and I think that's about right. You should go home kind of stuffed with ideas. Yeah,
that was great. I mean, I think, my session with Laura and Debbie, Laura is the president of Transland, Debbie, who is the director of driver services for Halver, had a great session where what I was trying to do was trying to get at the questions that they did really well with and sort of say, okay, what are you doing that makes you have a high score? Mm-hmm. And, so what kinds of programs do you have? So one of the things was Dial a Driver, which is not a new concept. This is from Halver Lines. What they but they named the program. So the executive, or actually, I think it's just the president, John, who gets a bunch of phone numbers from drivers, and every week he calls a certain number of drivers just to chit chat. And that the program is called Dial a Driver, which is not unique. I know that other fleets have done this, but I liked the fact that it's actually kind of going out of out of popularity, I think, because it is difficult to get the calls, keep the calls going when you have other things to do, but it still is really important to people. And it's a simple idea, a really good, catchy name for the program so that drivers can identify with it. It can be easily shared. So that's the kind of thing that I like highlighting when we do these kinds of things, is to say, okay, you're doing this program. Why do you think it's valuable?
Yeah, that was good. It was a good session. And then the final session that we had, I was interviewing Tim Krolsky from Garner Trucking to talk about their process for reviewing all of this information and how they decide what to do with it every year, because there's a lot and you can easily get overwhelmed and end up not doing anything. But Garner has a real process for going through it, itemizing where their gaps are and prioritizing which things they want to work on. And it goes throughout the year. It isn't something that just is an hour after they get the results book. It's something that continues through the year where they do reviews. And then even when they're prepping their questionnaire in the fall, they review that as well to make sure they've captured everything. But then they're also starting to think about things they didn't do that they want to do for the future.
Give me an example of something that kind of stood out to you, because I was on the radio with Dave Nemo at the time you were doing that.
Well, what got me thinking about this, and what prompted me to ask them to do it in the first place, was a picture that they'd posted on social media. And it turns out it was like 2 years ago they posted this picture, and it was captioned something like digging into the results from the Best Fleets program. And it was a picture of about 6 of them in their conference room, all around a projector, all with printed copies of their final report and copies of the results book, and going through it and discussing it as a team. And so what they do is they each get a copy of it and they go through and they kind of mark it up where they think they have opportunities or where they have ideas about doing things. And then they discuss it as a group and kind of look at not just places where they didn't score as well as they would have liked, but also look at the driver comments and the feedback on things that they think they could be doing. And a good chunk of it, and they said this even after all of this time, a good chunk of it is looking at it and realizing, oh, we actually do that. We do that, and we just never said anything. We still forgot to mention it after all the time. And
they've been the overall winner. But they've kind of got 3 overall wins now.
Yes, because they were last year's winner of the Stratosphere Award, so the highest scoring Hall of Fame fleet. And then they went and won the damn thing again this year.
Yeah.
Which I was not happy about. But
that's not, a slight against Garner. It's that we don't like having repeat winners.
We do not like repeat winners. And 2 of our 3 overall winners this year were the same as last year. So yes.
Both women owned.
Okay.
If that matters to anybody anymore. But I think what I personally like about the women-owned companies is that for the longest time, they did not do any better at Best Fleets. That actually, they did worse. I found that women-owned companies were not, like whoop-de-doo. It's owned by a woman, but, I don't see any difference.
They weren't better on diversity. They weren't handling anything any better.
Nope. Often when it's a woman-owned company, and this is not the case, I don't believe K&J is a family company. I think K&J was started by 2 women. But anyway, I know Garner was a family-owned company. What I found in like 10 years ago was that women-owned companies, you got the company, you inherited the company, and then you just kind of ran it the same way with the same people and didn't really do anything differently.
Right.
And you had, even though you were the owner as a woman, you still had 6 men who were informing your decisions. And there was really no hope for diversity. And what I'm seeing now is that gradually there have been more and more women involved in Best Fleets, which I think is important. Because I think women, and not just women, but when you have diverse points of view and you're thinking about all of them, you can move ahead faster.
Yes.
And when women are involved, they tend to bring that different type of point of view. So now we're getting, and now we're getting to the point where I think it's kind of women-owned companies are kind of finding their place.
Yes.
And they are performing better. And that diverse point of view that it doesn't have to be women. It just has to be diversity.
Any kind of diversity.
Yeah. Is going to help you with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good observation. That's a very good observation. There definitely is a trend in that direction.
When you're completely objective with your scoring and with how you evaluate things, and you're not just kind of looking at who the in-group is, then that you're going to start to see this. And I think it's really important that people understand that objective scoring is essential in that. Because you're not going to improve. If scoring is subjective in any way, then no one has any way to know how to get better.
Yeah. Well, that's why we spend the time that we do digging into the scoring in that particular way and getting so granular with how we score each question, but then also sharing all of that information. Here's what we found. Here's what is happening in this particular question. Here's the most elaborate thing that somebody is doing. Here's the pretty default thing that people are doing. All of that information so that everyone can make an informed decision about what they want to do.
Yeah.
And compare themselves against that and say, okay, well, the industry seems to be moving in this direction, so maybe we should pay attention to that too.
What's really interesting about your point about getting better at something is that you don't have to get better in the same way.
Absolutely.
And that's what's key in best fleets is you don't all have to have the same safety program in order to be at a certain level. Do it the way you want to do it. Just make sure that your drivers are happy with the improvements that you've made and that you give them the opportunity to have input. Do whatever you want. If it works, it works.
Yep.
And I'm happy to hear new ideas. And that's actually, I like hearing new ideas.
Fantastic. So we've spent much of the time talking about the conference because it was most of what we were thinking about for the last few months, and it seems to have gone off relatively well. People were happy and they left with lots of pages of notes, so that's very good. And now we've had a couple of weeks break, and next week we're off to another show, a very different kind of show and much less work actually for us. Or
yes.
Very different kind of work. We're off to Mid-America, which I always look forward to because it's an odd show. It's not easy for us to get to Louisville, that's for sure. It's a pain for us to get there now, but it always provides a great opportunity to talk to customers and talk to partners and see what's going on in different parts of the industry. And so I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. We're not doing an education session this year. We're just exhibiting there. And they have changed the whole thing around because they're having renovations on one of the major wings of the convention center. So they've mixed up where everybody is exhibiting, so that will add a new dimension to the whole thing. But I think it will be a fun time, as it always is. Yes,
it will be a nice, it'll be like a bit of a vacation because I don't have to do anything except talk to people who come by the booth. I'm not presenting. I'm not on the radio, although...
Oh, you'll be on the radio.
Possibly. It depends. I'll walk by the radio and wave at them and see if they...
Well, this is also the last ride of the Dave Nemo show.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So Dave will probably have you on for a segment there. He often has us. Usually they have us on for a segment during Mid-America. And
that's right.
Got the receptions and things happening.
They don't broadcast right from the floor either.
On Saturday, I think they do, but Thursday and Friday... Yeah, the Nemo group, they rent a big house for their whole team, and they set up in the dining room and broadcast from there.
See, if I go there, I'll probably hang out there all day.
Yeah, you'll never show up.
Just chat.
You'll never show up at the show.
Well, this is the problem is that we've been working with Radio Nemo for so long that, we just start chatting.
Yeah. Well, Dave is a chatty guy for sure. And especially with this kind of being his... I don't know, like his final show or he's been doing his final tour, his retirement tour, and now he's at the
He's going to be like the
closing
Who.
Night.
It's never going to be his final tour.
Retirement tour is going to have final tour 40 times.
Yeah, something like that. I remember the first time I met Dave, I had no idea who he was. And he kind of came and it was GATS, the Great American Truck.
The dearly departed and missed Great American Truck Show.
Yeah, which was in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And so this gentleman kind of comes up to the booth and says hello. And I'm like, yeah, can I help you? It's like, I'm Dave Nemo. Oh!
You had been on his show a couple of times.
I had.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. But it never connected. I never really looked at him. I just heard his voice. So he... So now I kind of joke with him when he, if I'm talking to him on the phone, if he calls me or texts me and says, it's Dave. And I'm like, oh, Dave Nemo calling me. So excited.
See, this is why we look forward to the show. You get to meet up with a lot of people that, even though we see them somewhat regularly, like we saw Dave 2 weeks ago at our conference, but we were working. That was a whole lot different. That's
the problem, is when you're working, or when you're kind of responsible for more of the show.
Yes.
When we, in other conferences, even when we were speaking, you still had time to kind of relax. Yes. And when you're the host.
Well, and I shouldn't mock it too much, because we are still working. We're still going to be working a booth all day. And there's going to be a few of us that are there, and we're still working.
But we're not responsible for it.
Yes. And like you say, even when you're speaking, that takes it up a level. But when you're having to plan the whole thing and make sure it all goes off smoothly, and you got to make sure registration is okay and meals are all right and all the AV is taken care of and nobody walks on stage at the wrong time. There's like a million things that you have to sort out to pull off the whole thing on your own. When you don't have that, everything else looks easy. Like even here, if we were doing an education session, that's it, stand at a booth and then speak for an hour. Oh, that's easy. Yeah. No problem.
Well, and just to remind everybody, we did not just do it, the two of us. We had a team.
We had an excellent team.
Yes, we had an excellent team who basically took care of, who owned so many things. I just, it was awesome. But it is different. But you still have to kind of be aware that those things are happening and make sure that you've put in all of the things to make sure that nothing goes wrong, or if things do go wrong, that you have
there's contingencies.
Yeah. And
now, just a correction on that. The one thing that I think we both have very little idea of what was happening was the backstage during the awards presentation. Deanna and Tommy, shout out to them, did a fantastic job. I know that it was much better this year because we had a live feed coming off of the stage so everybody could hear what was happening. That helped a lot. And Deanna has learned how to wrangle the backstage winners.
Apparently the wrangling didn't happen this year because there were two things. It was the backstage feed and the fact that I had said to her, they have to make sure that their logo is what's going on. So people were paying attention to where they were in line. They had visuals. And I think that's something to kind of remember, that if people don't have a visual of what they're supposed to be doing or when they're supposed to, or, they don't have that cue, then it's a lot more hair raising for them. I think that people felt a lot more comfortable going across the stage when, their logo is on there and they know that it's right and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like protecting people like that. I like making sure that when people are on stage with me, it's not, they're not thinking, oh my God. Like that, we had a little bit of an issue with audio during the first part of my panel with Debbie and Laura. And, you took care of it. I took care of it. It's not for them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we took care of it so they don't have to. That's part of why it's so much easier when we're just going to somebody else's show, right? Then it's their problem to sort out all of those things and make sure that we get fed and we can complain about the quality of the liquor and all of that stuff. Yes.
How was the liquor at ours?
I didn't even taste it, really. I had a drink. I had food. I had drink. I couldn't tell you. It was fine.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, you don't even really notice those things.
That's the problem. That's why Matt's is going to be like a vacation.
Yeah.
A vacation that in a place where I probably wouldn't vacation, but No,
it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time.
And we're staying downtown too.
Yes.
So that'll be fun.
I do not like the hotels that they have out by the airport and by that Congress Center.
Airport hotels are the worst.
That great. Yeah, they're not that great.
We went through a whole thing with the airports around the Toronto area, and they're all
the hotels. Yeah,
just awful. I think airport hotel is
maybe that's what it is.
It's just code word for ick.
Yeah, code word for ick.
Yeah, you stay in them because you need a bed.
We're going to have to drive a little bit, but it will be worth it, I think. It will be worth it to stay down there. We have that coming up next week, and somewhere in between all of this stuff, we do have some actual course development happening and some system development and a whole bunch of things. And I think maybe what we'll do is save that for the next episode.
Okay.
We keep pushing it off, so we're going to have like a big reveal, like a whole episode that is actually only about the state of training stuff.
Not Best Fleet.
Well, this was the last big thing, and now we're sort of getting it. Lots of core stuff and lots of system updates and enhancements are happening. The team has been doing a great job on these, so we'll have lots to talk about on probably the next episode.
All right.
I think for now, that's going to wrap us up for today. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye for now.